Okay, welcome to Bright Light News, everybody. We are pleased and honored to have here Chad Eros, and I'm going to let Chad do the introductions for himself so you know who this gentleman is. Chad?
Oh, hey, everybody. I just was engaged in, this convoy as a professional accountant. I was asked to help original committee that was doing a fundraiser to support some truckers on their way to Ottawa. Communicate with GoFundMe in a way that would help release some funds because there was, I would say, some back and forth, maybe a little bit of a runaround by GoFundMe as they were deliberating over probably some legacy news media and accusations of some weird accusations. So basically, I just put together a one-page write-up in a nice formatted way that I'm trained to do, and $1 million was released. Or they said they were going to release $1 million based on that little write-up. After that, my involvement really snowballed. The original committee that I was working with was out of primarily Medicine Hat and somebody from BC. They did a really good job of coming up with a reimbursement to the truckers for their travels to Ottawa. Like there was a per kilometer. They had to register under a team captain, and they had to the team captain had to sign their registration. And then they had to provide receipts as proof of journey. They came up with all this. I thought it was really good, but they just couldn't do the write-up in a way that that GoFundMe would authorize release of funds. So I did that because I'm a financial analyst. I was a commercial banker, and I would actually, author documents for that exact purpose, release of funds. So it was kind of in my wheelhouse to do that.
Okay.
Oh,
Perfect.
and I guess it's like, well, how did I even get involved with this? Well, it's just like a kind of friend of a friend type thing. Like, I know Chris Guerra.
In case people don't know, Chris Guerra is part of Adopt a Trucker, and he is managing the Give Send Go funds right now, and he currently has his assets frozen. The Give Send account is also frozen, and he is looking at a court date as well coming in the near future.
Further clarification on that, Chris Guerra has had his own Give Send Go fundraiser under Adopt a Trucker, and Freedom Convoy 2022 has their own fundraiser under Give Send Go after GoFundMe decided to discontinue Freedom Convoy 2022's campaign there. And as people might recall, GoFundMe said that they were taking over the funds, and they were going to distribute the funds to charities and nonprofits that they saw fit. That caused kind of a big backlash, and then they just said that they were going to refund everybody. But if you talk to Chris Guerra, and which I do a lot, all the time, I've known him for a long time. The only reason why he started his fundraiser in the first place is because GoFundMe wasn't releasing any funds, and he was needing some of the money to just do things like porta potties, some like arrange for food, shelter, water, whatever, just like basic necessities of life.
You've been there from day one. What have you been doing?
Well, we landed day one, and our idea was to make sure that when the truckers landed, their job was done, that we could take care of them. And we did that through asking everyone to adopt a trucker. And what that looks like is people from Ottawa have actually taken these truckers into their homes, allowed them to wash their clothes, shower, shuttle them around, make sure that they had everything to make sure they were comfortable, that the stay would be fun and rewarding. And it's been so peaceful, so amazing. People have loved these truckers right from day one.
Right,
Chris,
including paying for the video wall that was there, and
Yeah,
all the stage equipment, right?
yeah, exactly. Like a lot of that was basically all of that was supposed to be financed from the Freedom 2020, like Freedom Convoy 2022 campaign, which was with GoFundMe, which was basically frozen. So he was like, well, I'm going to start my own campaign on Give Send Go. And Give Send Go was releasing the money to him so he could finance the stuff. Like he could pay for that stuff, while the Freedom Convoy 2022 campaign couldn't, because it was stuck in GoFundMe. So that when GoFundMe pulled the plug on allowing the campaign, then Freedom 2022 switched over to Give Send Go, and that's when the government and this class action lawsuit got launched, and they did something called a Mariva injunction, which basically freezes the funds and doesn't allow you to use it. So
before we go down that path, can you let the viewers know what happened to the $1 million that was released though by GoFundMe?
Oh yeah, okay. So like I said, GoFundMe said they would release $1 million after we submitted my one-page write-up, and before they released that money, I incorporated a nonprofit corporation, because it was determined that it would be better for a nonprofit corporation to receive the funds than for what was originally planned or set up was for Tamara Leach's like a personal bank account of Tamara's to get the money. So I was trying to get TD Bank to open up a nonprofit bank account, but they wouldn't do it. And we were like, well, please open up a nonprofit. We don't want the money to go into Tamara's personal bank account. That's not the way this money should be received. Basically, everybody agreed on that, but they wouldn't open the bank account. So then GoFundMe released the $1 million into Tamara's personal bank account, and then TD froze the money. After they froze the money, they handed the money over to the courts. And now the courts are supposed to decide what's going to happen with the money. That's what happened to the money. Like, a lot of people are saying that the $1 million disappeared from Tamara's bank account mysteriously.
There's a problem with the trucker convoy leadership. There's no official leadership of this convoy, but a group has come in and tried to assert itself as being the official leadership. And the group that's doing this is the group that has the $10 million Give Send Go account. There's 4 people that are the official spokespeople. So this to me is them trying to grab everything for themselves.
No, that, like, all those rumors and conspiracy theories are not true. So what's happening right now, because the funds have been handed over to the courts, there's going to be deliberations between the lawyers about what's going to happen with that money. Like there are definitely beneficiaries named in the fundraiser, and so of course we want the funds to go to the named beneficiaries, which were the truckers, like those people who filled out the registration forms, submitted like the proof of journey and all that sort of thing. The money we believe the money should go to them, but it's before the court, so we'll have to see what they decide.
Right. And so what happened was, because this convoy had become so big, the donations had become so large, the government started off with this narrative to say that it was there was a white nationalist movement behind what was happening, despite zero footage or evidence to show that, except for that first day where there was that Confederate flag and Trudeau's personal photographer there, and the guy was in a balaclava, and then apparently there was also a swastika flag that we never saw again. So the funny thing is, so the Emergencies Act is invoked. They annex to that the Emergency Economic Measures Order, which allows FINTRAC to basically become an intelligence agency to make sure everything is registered with the government for the convoy, because FINTRAC is able to basically track anybody who is raising funds through crowdsourcing or payment service providers for what might be laundering purposes or terrorist purposes. And as you had mentioned to me earlier, I had missed this article, but it was put up by True North, another independent media, which is so important because, as you said, no one's talking about this, but True North Center put out that the Deputy Director of Intelligence for Canada's Financial Intelligence Agency, FINTRAC, Barry McKillop, says many donations to the Freedom Convoy were not funding terrorism or money laundering. Quote, "I believe they just wanted to support the cause." It's incredible. The guy who is the deputy director of FinTrack saying these funds are not for terrorist purposes, and yet the government runs with this.
Yeah, it's quite remarkable that they would, like, they kind of put that argument on its head. They're saying like what they're saying, what that Mariva injunction is saying is like, well, you can't use the proceeds of crime to do anything with, like, that money is frozen or whatever. So it's like if I was a crystal meth dealer and I had a bunch of money in a vault and I wanted to use that, and then they freeze it, right? They say, nope, you can't use that money because that's from your from your drug dealing. Well, the money that was received in the fundraiser wasn't from drug dealing. It was from people who had jobs as like waitresses and waiters and accountants and lawyers and truck drivers. And like, that's not proceeds of crime. That's what he's saying. He's saying this is ridiculous, right? Anyways, we've got a good lawyer on that. Like I said, I want to speak mostly on my own behalf and not even on the nonprofit's behalf, just tell my story. But there's a lawyer on that, and he's finding that a lot of these assumptions, like the premises of some of these court orders, are quite odd. And these court orders were made, by the way, ex parte, like that's a fancy term meaning our like the nonprofit's lawyers weren't there. They weren't invited to court. They weren't invited to defend themselves. These rulings were made without our lawyers' knowledge, without our knowledge, and just basically dictated and delivered to us.
This is what we're living in, this carte blanche dictatorship, so-called, or so it seems, because, I mean, again, the government has deputized banks to be the judge, jury, and hangman without an actual trial by freezing people's assets. And now they're unfrozen, except let's get back now to Chris Guerra with Adopt a Trucker. His assets are still frozen, allegedly because it wasn't frozen through the banks, it was frozen through the Attorney General. And there's about $10 million US sitting in the Give, Send, Go accounts. His personal accounts are frozen, as well as his wife's. They are unable to pay their mortgage. Can you talk about the Give, Send, Go donation? Give us an update on that and what's happening with that money, please.
Okay, yeah, well, you talked about Chris Guerra's situation there, and how I think he received the funds kind of the same way that Tamara received that $1 million. It would have been, he set that up in an emergency because he had to, obviously pay for things that he thought he was going to get money from the big fundraiser, but he didn't. So he set that up quickly, and then those whatever funds are in his account got frozen. So that, like you said, but they didn't just freeze that account; they froze all his accounts, even the accounts that he uses for his own personal life. Now, with the other fundraiser, right now I think it's close to 10 million US, which is around 12.5 million Canadian. They not one penny of that has been used by Freedom 2022. Now, the nonprofit organization name is Freedom 2022, Human Rights and Freedoms. That nonprofit hasn't been able to use or touch one penny of it, and there's a couple of reasons why. The political class went after us pretty hard. They went to the financial institutions, like you said. We had a very hard time even opening up a bank account. So, number one, we couldn't even put the money in our own bank account. We were successful in opening up a bank account from a credit union in Manitoba, and then after a few days of having a bank account, they emailed me and phoned me and said, we're shutting your bank account down. You can't have a bank account here. So I struggled so hard. I applied to so many different places just to get a bank account. Nobody would open one for me. And then finally, after I did open a bank account and I thought, wow, I finally have a place to put this money, they shut it down. So the reason why all the money is stuck with one of the reasons why all the money is stuck with Give, Send, Go is because no Canadian financial institution will open a bank account for us. Now, the other reason why it's stuck with Give, Send, Go is because of this court order saying that if I touch the money or if anyone uses the money for its intended purposes, which is to support the protesters like the truckers and the cause, that I'll go to jail because I'll be violating the court order. So the lawyers are saying you can't do anything with the money. I can't even give it back to the donors. Like, if I do anything with the money, even return it to the donors, I'll be violating the court order and I will go to jail.
This is absolutely a bizarre situation. We had the deputy director of FinTrack say this is not supporting a terrorist organization. The Emergencies Act has been removed. We were there for the motion hearing for the Canadian Frontline Nurses case against the government to remove the Emergencies Act, where the lead counsel for the Attorney General, I believe his name was Provard, had said because the Emergencies Act has been revoked, that would also include the annexed Emergency Economic Measures Order, which means that FinTrack no longer has a play in this, so that all monies are going to be unfrozen. And he said that there would be no future financial sanctions or consequences for people who are part of this. Now, the banks have unfrozen people, but they're not unfreezing the Give, Send, Go money. They're not unfreezing some accounts, including Chris Guerra's. What is happening here? Why is this persisting? And is there a legal basis for this? What are your lawyers saying? Are you able to talk about that?
Yeah. Well, obviously, like, I'm an accountant. I'm not a lawyer, and I don't want to make up stuff if I don't really know the reason why. But I think it has a lot to do with this class action lawsuit where they want the funds frozen in place. No, I won't tell you what I think from a legal standpoint because I'm not a lawyer, but I'll tell you what does confuse me, which I think is fair. What confuses me is that anybody would think that they can have a claim over this money, that this money is available to settle lawsuits, because the money is held in trust for beneficiaries. The money is supposed to go to the intended people that it was raised for. So what's confusing to me is, like, let's say that I start a fundraiser for you because let's say you have cancer and I want to raise funds to help support you in your time of need. And then somebody steps in and says, well, I heard you're raising money for this guy, for Gordon, who has cancer, but Gordon's a bad guy and he did some bad stuff. So I want to sue you, the fundraiser, take that money and keep it for myself because Gordon did bad stuff to me. I don't understand how that can even be possible. Maybe the lawyers can explain that better, but like but that just doesn't seem within the realm of possibilities, like that you're going to sue the fundraiser because you don't like the beneficiary, right? But
right. And so what you're talking about here, just to clarify for people, is the $306 million lawsuit, correct?
Yeah.
That was started by a 21-year-old civil servant in Ottawa on behalf of first herself for all the noise, the damage to businesses. Then she had pulled in all these businesses and people who were working down there to be part of the plaintiffs' party. And now this thing has just ballooned to, I think it originally started at something like 10 million and it's ballooned to $306 million.
Right. The initial lawsuit had, I think, about between 50 and 75 Joe and Jane Does, like, fill in the blank. Like, they just want to keep adding people, to this. My personal name is on the $306 million lawsuit. As I said, I was initially brought in to help an original committee properly communicate with GoFundMe to release money, which did. The one page write up released $1 million. TD seized it, so handed over to the courts. Then I became the treasurer. And so they found out I was the treasurer and stuck my personal name on this $306 million lawsuit. Apparently, I don't know. They think that that's grounds for suing me. I mean, I shouldn't laugh. It's not funny, but it's incomprehensible to me. I don't understand. Not that I'm gonna cry and boohoo and I'm a victim, but I mean, it obviously doesn't seem right.
Well, listen, I understand the laughter because it's such a ridiculously bizarre overreach of not even just power and legal authority, but I mean just logic, right?
Yeah.
And so you have to laugh at it, otherwise you're going to cry. Really.
Yeah, and I think, like I said, I'm not a lawyer, but I've heard these words from lawyers before: frivolous and vexatious litigation, where they just like, and if they're being like, I'm a chartered professional accountant. My reputation in financial matters really matters to me. And if this lawsuit causes me any damages, well, and I think I'm going to start quantifying my damages right now. There's, people can predict what's going to happen next. If people are just frivolously throwing people's personal names on this lawsuit just to see what's going to stick, they might need to be warned that some of us don't appreciate that very much. And I will defend my professional integrity to the nth degree. People don't typically, I don't really know what kind of advice this 21-year-old applicant has gotten from her lawyer regarding this class action lawsuit.
We're joined now by Zexi Lee, a Centertown resident who's the lead plaintiff in a lawsuit against the protest organizers. What have you been thinking as you've watched the police operation unfold today?
The first sort of feeling, I think, is relief. We've waited a really long time for action. We've waited too long for action at this point.
But sticking professionals on there that don't really, I abide by a strict code of ethics that, and I act very carefully when I do what I do. And yeah.
Okay, let's get back to that $10 million. If the funds are released, where will the money go? You talked about registered truckers and participants. Where are we going to see that $10 million go? Because we need to put to rest these conspiracy theories that are happening now within the Freedom Convoy movement, where we have people saying that this whole Freedom Convoy movement was orchestrated by such and such actors. They drove everybody here. They got the government involved. This was a plan to set in the Emergencies Act and then to get FinTract involved and start this deeper wave of digitalized control that is going to, culminate in the Great Reset, right? And
right. That is that's a new theory that I've heard within the last couple of days that really honestly, I gotta say, if that's true, then I was completely played. I was if that conspiracy theory is true, I was masterfully duped into getting into this. And there's no way the original committee that's working on a kitchen table that has to leave the Zoom meeting because their boss wants them to get back to work and they have no more time in their coffee break to talk to me. All these people, I'm in the back. So here I am, I'm in a cab with Tamara and Dwayne. She's on the phone with her boss asking for more time off. We are just, not to be self-deprecating, but we are really just a bunch of nobodies. And maybe I just don't know how super fantastic we all got played. I think I think what's perhaps perplexing and unbelievable to people is that this really truly just was grassroots, and people just like finally saying, "Well, no, my kids need to be reinstated to have the rights that they had before. Like, they can't play soccer, they can't play football, they can't go into a building. I can't go into a building to watch my kids play sports because I'm not vaccinated. So I can't even take my kids to tournaments. And even if I do, I have to stand outside the building, or like my one child was in wrestling, and I wasn't allowed to go in because I had to be vaccinated, not negative COVID tested, vaccinated as a parent to attend the wrestling tournament. So like this giant conspiracy theory.
It sort of
about how,
usurped the whole goal of the mandates and the convoy, right? Is what we're seeing.
yeah, it's kind of just, I don't want to say silly, but I think the alternative is that it truly was a genuine, sincere grassroots protest, and that makes the political class and perhaps their followers or sycophants or whatever you want to call them seethe. It makes them seethe, right? No,
Yeah.
this can't be real. This can't be a real, actual grassroots uprising of people who are fed up with the government overreach. It can't be that. It has to be something else. It's like, I'm sorry, but
Yeah.
it really is that.
It's, I think it's hard for people to appreciate that who are not there in Ottawa talking with people who were organizing, because as you said, it really was a grassroots movement where you had so many disparate parts coming together to try and help organize this. I know one internet influencer said that there was only 4 people running the show, but I mean, you had the trucker convoy people, you had Adopt a Trucker, you had working on the ground to make the events safe, working with the police. Then you had actual veterans and ex-police officers working with the police to make sure that everything was okay and safe. There were so many players in this to distill it down to 4 people who are now, I don't know if you're part of those 4 people, but are now set to steal all this money from the Gifts and Go account. Like, I want to ask you, let's get back to that $10 million. Are you right now signing end papers for a place in let's say Mallorca? I mean,
Oh yeah, like am I signing off on a purchase and sale agreement, buying
yes.
something with cash? Nope. Here I am. I'm in little old Moose Jaw, sitting in my house. Unemployed right now, but I've had some good, nice, fantastic meetings with people about starting up a practice again. But yeah, like, no, I'm not in here. Let's see here. I don't know if you can see the snow, the ice and snow.
Yeah.
That's what I'm living in right now. I'm not in Fiji right now, and like I said, there's not one single penny has been touched of the money. And by the way, on that note, even when money could have been taken, because so some people have asked about because Tamara was taking donations through what do you call it, e-transfer. So I was going over her that account with her. She didn't spend any of the money, like, until the truckers arrived and they needed fuel. So I said to her, and I was in Moose Jaw when this happened, I said, hey, can you go to the bank and e-transfer a fuel provider? So $13,000 of that money got spent before that account got frozen, and that's it. Even so, like there was another account people keep talking about. That's the e-transfer account. So Tamara wouldn't touch that money either, because she wanted to abide by her original committee that was created in Medicine Hat, which was to only only use the money for like fuel and reimbursing the truckers and those kind of needs. What I'm trying to say is people were afraid to touch the money even when they could. Like it was, I was even saying, like, I'm a CPA and I'm supposed to be conservative, and I am, like about use of funds and things like that. I was like, you guys have to, like, you're raising this money to support the protesters. You need to be a little more open-minded as to what you can use the money for. You've kind of painted yourself into a corner, and they're gonna get. I was afraid they were gonna get criticism the other way, like, hey, spend the money. Whereas the criticism on the other hand would be you spend too much money, right?
Mm-hmm.
So they're never in danger of spending the money on frivolous and stupid things because they didn't even spend it.
Right.
Yeah.
Right. Okay. Well, listen. Let's move on to some other things that we had discussed previously. We had discussed the legacy of the Freedom Convoy. Everything has been so stained now with that police violence, the Emergencies Act, that people have forgotten what Freedom Convoy was, that feeling, that, how the smell of the diesel and the honking trucks made people feel. I mean, can you give the audience your impression of what that time was, what it meant to you, what it meant for Canadians?
Yeah, thanks for asking me that. I want to share. I went for lunch with a couple of truckers who were passing through on their way back to Alberta, and they shared their story with me. And I said, "You have to share this story." And they told me, "Well, we're not good public speakers. We're not good at going on the news or anything." That I'm like, okay, well, I want to, I'm going to tell your story. So I told their story to my mom, and she wept, and everyone just has like big lumps in their throat. So these two guys that I went for lunch with, really fantastic, humble, these two Mennonite guys, and the one guy's wife was with me. They said, they heard that there was going to be a convoy going to Ottawa. They just kind of loosely heard this through Facebook. And the one cousin said to the other, "What do you think? Do you think we should go?" And another guy, they talked to each other, said, "Yeah, sure, let's go." And they thought, well, this is going to be small, right? But we'll go anyway, because they didn't find that they were convincing other people to go either. But they hopped in their trucks and they started to go. And he said, all of a sudden, just truckers started to come out of the woodwork everywhere. Like they talk on the radio. They say, "Hey, are you going to go?" Well, maybe not. And then they find out, someone's going, they join them, and it just started to grow and grow. And he said, as we were driving, and the people on the overpasses, the thousands of people on the overpasses, the thousands of people on the side of the road, it was overwhelming. He said he was crying almost all the way there, and he said he pulled over, and there was mothers coming up with their kids in their arms, crying, hugging them and saying, thank you for this. And he said some people would try and talk to him, but they couldn't even get words out because they were sobbing so much. And he said it was unbelievable. And he said this one time, this mother walked up to him and gave him her daughter's suicide note, how she couldn't take it anymore, and how the world that she was living in, where she couldn't do anything, and all her hopes and dreams were dashed and crushed because of all these mandates and things. She took her life, and he just said, like, he said what they said was, that was the heaviest load that we ever carried, was the load that we carried to Ottawa. And he said by the time we got to Ottawa, there was no way we were going to leave early, because they felt like they were there for all those people. He felt like he was there for the sobbing mothers. He felt like he was there for that woman who gave him her daughter's suicide note. And that's why they were there. And it was love and compassion that kept the truckers there. And the other amazing part of his story was that how they were winning the police over. They were doing the Lord's Prayer every day in German, French, and English. They were constantly talking to the truck drivers, to the police, and the police became their friends. There's pictures. He was showing me pictures of them in the police cruisers, pretending to be locked up, sitting in the passenger side of of the police, police laughing and joking and hugging with them and stuff like that. And then he said, near the end, all of the police that they won over, all of their friends got swapped out for new tactical teams. They couldn't, those police couldn't be there anymore because they were completely won over by them.
By the reality that this was a peaceful convoy that was completely in contradiction to a fabricated narrative.
Exactly. And then he said the new police that came in the Emergency Act, they started to build rapport with them too, but it was really hard. He said that he didn't even think some of the police spoke English. He said we were talking to them and their eyes would go up and down, and it kind of seemed like they didn't even understand what they were saying. And then all of a sudden they started to use force to get them out. But those weren't the same police that were there with them for weeks that they won over. And I have amazing, I hope this guy sends me the pictures of them just like embracing the police, being with, like, pretending they were pretending they were arrested in the back of the cars. And just there was actually, and I don't know if you recall this, but the mayor of Ottawa was kind of furious that that they were kind of playing with the cop cars, but they weren't playing with the cop cars out of disrespect. They were in there because the police were letting them in there, and like it wasn't like a disrespectful thing. It was like a jovial, friendly thing that was happening.
Well, it sounds to me as if it was the actual energy and the vibe of Freedom Convoy affecting the police officers. I don't know how they could be there and not be overwhelmed by just the pure love, celebration, joy, and unity that everyone is experiencing there. I mean, it was exuberant being there. It was a celebration. So you would have had to have this, the coldest heart not to be able to sit there and say, these people are not terrorizing Ottawa citizens. They're not violently attacking people in racial acts. These people are here to win back their freedoms. And they have stories, like you mentioned, of these truckers, of lives ruined, of lives taken from these measures. And this Freedom Convoy offered hope. And I think a lot of those police officers, to put it in the Matrix terms, were red-pilled to see what really was happening. Right?
Yeah, and actually feel concerned. I think a lot of people feel concerned. A lot of the truckers, a lot of the protesters that got to know the police, those police that that left, I'm sure, like, they feel concerned for them, because I'm pretty, like, all organizations can basically live forever, and they can outlast an individual person who gets old, and they just have nothing but time to make these people's lives miserable. Right? Like these police that were won over, we're concerned for them. We're like, people should be concerned for the police officers that helped the truckers go park where they were supposed to park. It was the police. It was the city of Ottawa that gave maps and showed them where to go, where to park. And for that 21-year-old applicant who is suing people for $306 million or $309 million or whatever it is, unfortunately, she might have to add the city of Ottawa and the Ottawa police to that lawsuit. I mean, they were the main planners that instructed the truckers where to go, where to park.
Right. So you're saying in essence, the police were actually co-conspirators in this terrorist insurrection.
Yeah.
Yes,
well,
because I know.
Yeah, exactly. To be sarcastic. Yeah.
Right.
Exactly.
Speaking with Chris Guerra, we interviewed him before the convoy arrived, and he said that they were working diligently on the ground with police officers who were very cooperative to make sure that this was going to be a safe event. They were going to make sure that one lane was always left open for emergency vehicles wherever the trucks were parked. And we had interviewed also as well, and he came out and spoke in many press conferences.
I'm Danny Bulford. I was a member of the RCMP for 15 years. The last 8 was spent here on a full-time tactical unit, where I spent the majority of my time protecting our Prime Minister and conducting other tactical operations.
saying that he was always in contact with the police officers, working with them to ensure that everything would be as smooth and peaceful as possible. So, I mean, again, this narrative that and this gaslighting and offloading of responsibility from the police now is what you're saying.
Yeah.
Culminating in this fired police chief's speech that he gave, saying that the police had nothing to do with it. I think we'd mentioned that it was Peter Slowly.
Yeah, Slowly. That's right. There's a video of him saying, we have not planned or done any logistics or anything, and if there was any planning by any police officer, we're going to investigate them. Well, that's concerning, I think, because well, he's fired now. He doesn't work there anymore, but boy, that's not fair, because a lot of the emails and text messages from police indicate that there was a whole entire team devoted to providing logistics to where the truckers should go park. And like,
including Coventry Road, you said, right?
Pardon me?
Including Coventry Road, where one of the main stations were for the truckers.
That was their idea. The truckers went to Coventry Road because it's city-owned property, and according to the police, right? This is what they're saying. They're saying, trucks can go there, they can park there. And then the police did that fuel raid at Coventry Road. It's like, you guys, you told the truckers to go there. It was your idea in the first place. And then you go and raid their fuel. What are you doing? Like that doesn't make any sense. And, I'm only finding these things out from the people that were having the conversations with the police in the first place. So Gordon, you're gonna speak about this probably in length with straight from the horse's mouth, as they say, from the people that actually were speaking with the police and taking direction from the police as where the trucks were supposed to be directed. Right. They like, I saw correspondence recently where they were saying you can go here, but you can't go there. You can park here, but don't park there. It's quite remarkable.
Right. And these are in the form of texts and emails, correct?
Yeah, they're written. They're texts and emails. Yep. It's written correspondence. So unfortunately for Slowly, his denial of any involvement on behalf of the police is unfortunately just not true. But I think in the spirit of compassion and mercy, like back to the spirit of those two truckers I went for lunch with, is probably concerned about what's going to happen to those police who were directed to be involved and basically give direction as to where they should go. Like, what's going to happen to them? Are they going to be scapegoated too? Are they going to be blamed?
Just like the police officers who donated to the Freedom Convoy.
There are police officers who did donate to that. Another thing that I heard from the two guys that I went for lunch with, which I think is important, they would probably want people to know this, is that at least 4 police officers did turn to be with the protesters when they were being forcibly removed, and they were arrested. And he says he thinks it's up to 11 police officers were arrested for basically having compassion for the protesters and turning to their fellow officers and saying, like, we have to stop this or whatever. I think he says 4 for sure, and up to 11 were arrested.
Well, this is incredible. I mean, this goes beyond all of the regulatory colleges that we know, say doctors' colleges, teachers' colleges, unions, all speaking out, saying you cannot speak out against any of the mandates or you will suffer consequences like termination, suspension, right? And now this has led to arrests. This is news to us. And again, not surprising, but shocking. Nothing shocking here. Let's finish off with, again, going back to the legacy of Freedom Convoy. I know I spoke with on the Saturday when the second day of violence was happening, when they were trying to clear out Ottawa in the secure zone. One of the truckers told me that they would be leaving because they didn't want to face arrest, have their insurance suspended and whatnot. But he did say that the police officer that he was talking with said, listen, about half the Ottawa police are with you guys. Hold the line. And then he fist bumped them. I mean, this is an anecdotal story, but this is something that, as I got to know this trucker over the course of time, it didn't seem to me like he was any sort of person that would fabricate things for his own purposes, right? To create a narrative. I mean, he was just, in disbelief of what was actually happening and said, but listen, these guys are with us. So for you, what is your takeaway from the legacy of Freedom Convoy? What, in the end, regardless of what happens to the money, what was it for you? What does it mean for Canada? What does it mean for the world? What does it mean for democracy?
Well, number one, it was lightness that exposed what was hiding in the darkness. It really exposed it exposed the truthfulness behind the merits of the protest in the first place, because the protest was against government overreach. And what did the government do in response to that protest? Overreach more, and then overreach more. Like locking people's bank accounts down. It was the police, by the way, just so you know, when I talked to, my bank accounts got frozen, and my credit union told me that the Ontario Provincial Police, on the OPP, not RCMP, and I asked her to clarify that a number of times, contacted my credit union in Saskatchewan and told them that I was a designated person, and that my bank accounts needed to be frozen. And my response to her was, and so you did it? Like, you did what the police told you to do? That is the epitome of police state. Police are actually in charge and ruling the country.
Out of their jurisdiction from one province to another.
Yeah. And so I said to her, what is, can you tell me what legislation or order on justified you doing this? She told me, you need to phone the RCMP and the Ontario Provincial Police for the answer. So I needed to, did I phone the OPP and the RCMP and ask them why they ordered my account shut down? No. Hey, and by the way, come get me now and send me to the gulags. Like, no thanks.
And are your accounts unfrozen now?
They are unfrozen now. Yeah. I'm not sure about my credit card. Yesterday, like I have a credit card, Superstore credit card or whatever, and I went there to go buy groceries and it wasn't working. So that might be frozen. And someone recognized me in Superstore. I don't wear masks, by the way. And they recognized me and they walked up and he goes, "Oh, are your accounts still frozen?" And he swiped his card and paid for my groceries for me. Awesome. Yeah. Like, and I was on Kid Carson and I said, this whole thing has made people better people, not worse. Like, it exposed the government overreach, that they made passports and mandates. They created a class system. People who do what the government says can travel. People who don't do what the government says can't travel. It's based on junk science that doesn't work. People who are vaccinated can get and spread COVID the same as unvaccinated people. So it doesn't justify the passport system whatsoever, but they're going to keep it anyway. And it was so important for them to keep that stupid passport system that they would invoke the Emergency Act. Completely. What does that say about how important this foot in the door to control people's bodies is to them? To not give one tiny little millimeter in their efforts to create class systems and a social credit system where if you obey the government, you get rewarded. If you don't obey the government, you get your rights taken away. And what people should really take away from this is that they took away every Canadian's rights, and you could only get them back if you did what they said. It's not that people shouldn't, like, it would be tragic for people to think, oh, I got vaccinated, so the government gave me the right to travel. No. the government took away all of our rights to travel, and we could only get them back if we did what they said. That's a totally different mindset.
Yeah, I mean, this dangling of the carrot to have your taken freedoms given back in part and parcel, and then, have acts and orders come in that can easily take them away again in the future with the next, so-called pandemic or variant, or, and
Yep.
now even talking about influenza now, possibly
Yep.
being ramped up in this way, with Theresa Tam saying, listen, things are starting to slow down now with Omicron, but, we have to be prepared to go into the same state again in September, in the fall, when we have the seasonality of respiratory viruses, right?
No way. I don't know who this Theresa Tam thinks she is, but no. We have to have to carry on. We have to carry on with life. It's not true. There's science. The science it does not support passport systems, lockdowns, taking people's rights away. The science, if it shows us that, this has never been about the science to me. And I keep telling people, I don't want to go down this science rabbit hole. It's about human rights to me. It's about your rights, because what's the next passport going to be? And I want to bring this back to the last time a world leader had passports in place. He used his own scientists to support his passports. His scientists said that his race was the superior race, that his race deserved to have all their rights and freedoms, but any other race didn't. And that guy's name was Adolf Hitler. And his scientists, they touted and believed in eugenics, the basically breeding of humans and breeding of superior humans to create a superior human race, and the sterilization and extinction of inferior humans. But who gets to say who's an inferior human, and who gets to say who needs to be extinct, right? He went after the Jewish race and wanted to exterminate them, by dehumanizing people using eugenics. And now we live in a time where people are being dehumanized because they're not vaccinated, but that's okay, right? That's okay. The science supports it. Well, he said the science supported his theories of who should be bred and who should be sterilized and exterminated. It's people have to wake up. This playbook was already written, and it's almost like they're following the same playbook, but nobody's questioning it. Or if you do question it, they say, yeah, so what are you going to do about it? We're going to freeze your bank accounts now. We're going to dox you. We're going to make your name public and your address public, and who knows what's going to happen after we do that? If someone comes to your house and burns it down, we didn't do it. We just put your name out there. It's incredible.
So Freedom Convoy rolls into Ottawa January 29th. What do you think it achieves in defiance of these mandates, in defiance of the thievery of freedoms and rights, the trampling of the charter? What did it achieve?
I think the success comes in the fact that, like I said before, there's a lot of case in point. Like we said, there was government overreach, and then they used a hammer to crack down. Nobody came out and talked to anybody. Nobody tried to understand the issues. The other thing is they've because the mandates are still there and they've doubled down. They've created they actually have created a permanent movement that's going to last for decades. If they would have said, look, there's hundreds of thousands of people here. We saw the video footage. There was hundreds of thousands of people sending the truckers on their way to Ottawa. This is a national thing. It's not a fringe minority. Everybody's on board. We heard your voices and we're ending the mandates. They didn't do that, and they did the absolute opposite. They punished people, and now they've created a permanent movement that's going to last for decades. People won't forget this. And like I said, I always like to end on the fact that people that participated in this and got to know each other, they're better people now for this. I've heard that from other people. I heard a trucker say, or like I heard a story about a trucker he said this: I got handed $15,000 cash. The old me would have left that convoy and I would have spent it on myself. But after being around everybody, I took that money and I handed it out to people that I knew needed it more than me. He said, I'm a different person. I wouldn't have done that before. And that's the legacy of, I think, this convoy, is that the light exposed what was in the darkness, and people are better people for it now. You know, the court of public opinion it's a thing. You know, it matters. I think it really drives the legal courts too. It shouldn't drive the legal courts, but it does.
I agree with you 100%. This is what I've been saying the whole time, that this is just one big PR info war, and it's the court of public opinion that will change everything. You know, when I interviewing Max Bernier, I said, listen, why are we seeing this shift now? There's a subtle shift happening with some of the politicians. And he said, because we don't need 50% of the population to actually change politicians, right? They're basically, you know, prostitutes to the trends, right? If it's going from 10% or against this to 15%, and then they see 20%, that's when they start to quake a little bit and say, listen, I might have to shift my position here, right? So again, we don't need this massive number. We just need to see that trend happening. And
yep,
it's a PR war. I agree with you 100%. It's the court of public opinion that will win this. And that's why we need to remain, you know, compassionate to the people who have bought the narrative, be their friend, but also, you know, set boundaries with them. But we need them to win this. We don't win without them, right?
Yeah. I think, and you know, I think a lot of the trend was people finding their voices, people coming out who were afraid in the first place. So it seemed like there wasn't very many people that were against the mandates until, you know, it just takes one person, then there's two, then there's four, and then it grows exponentially, right?
Yeah.
You're like, oh, me too, and it just keeps growing, and so that's what we saw, and we're gonna continue to see it. It's gonna be great.
Well, especially with all of the photos and videos that people took out of Ottawa to share with people. I mean, you cannot deny that evidence. Whenever someone says there was violence, they say, no, look at my videos. It's not true.
Yeah.
It was a lie. People will see this, right?
Yeah, exactly. And that one trick pony of just the government calling people white supremacists whenever they disagree with them is getting ridiculous. It's like, oh boy, here we go. Again, someone disagrees with you, you know, like you like apples, I like oranges, I'm racist. You know, like you know, you prefer vanilla ice cream cones, I like chocolate ice cream cone, I'm racist. Just whatever. If you disagree with these guys, you're racist. Doesn't matter what it is. Like, you don't like mandates, you don't like passports based on vaccines that don't work, you're a racist. Like,
yeah.
Where's the straight line between those 2 points?
But I think this is the great thing, is that the Freedom Convoy made the vaccine mandates a moot point, and it made people realize, like, what the hell is going on in our country, right?
Yeah.
That's the thing that unified a lot of people. It went beyond the mandates to a degree, right?
Yeah, it did. That's right. Exactly. It exposed a lot of what's in the shadows. It's a light that exposed what's in the shadows.
Yeah, sure. You put that really well. And then something that I've heard, because I've been following a lot of the doctors and focusing on that a lot, but there was a massive shift in the video messages and the speeches from the doctors that were there. Robert Malone, Dr. Charles Huff, they used the words good versus evil. They went beyond the science to say that this is a bigger and more nefarious agenda, right? They completely abandon what they've been doing before. It's just trying to fight moderately with the science.
Yeah.
Like you said, it emboldened people, it empowered people to say more, right? And it gave people that were, hiding out in their attics or whatever and staying away from family members to find a voice, connect, and hear other stories. And it empowered people, man. It really did. It lit a fire in people's hearts, and you can't stop that.
Nope, that's right. It's good. We got to ride the positivity wave, is what I think. There's a lot of bad things that happen for sure, and that can roll off of us because it's a unstoppable wave that's been started. It's just going to continue.
How many times did we hear people say, whether it was the first time they ever said this in life, even though they were born here as a Canadian, or whether they were new immigrants that never really felt that, they said, for the first time, I am proud to be Canadian.
Yes, that's true. I get emails like that. I get text messages. The two guys I talked to said they were proud to be a Canadian, based on just the hugs, the tears, the laughter, the camaraderie, the coming together. Exactly, like a lot of people that I know I know people that left they emigrated from Canada based on our rights being taken away. Left, went to a different country, Mexico, United States.
And you were close to leaving this country.
Well, we contacted a immigration lawyer to a different country too. We were just like, well, this is, I guess Canada's not what it was. This is not the same country that I was born into. It's just not. And just seeing no indication that that any of this was temporary. Even when they did the Emergency Act, they used the police to shut down bank accounts. Chrystia Freeland said that this is a permanent thing. And people around the world, their mouths just fell open. Like, wow, you're using even this to instill permanent, draconian controlling measures that of what they're protesting in the first place. Right. It's like, oh, you don't like it when I slap you. How about I punch you now? It's just.
Well, thankfully, she didn't. It hasn't gone ahead to be permanent yet. There was talks that she said that it should be made permanent, but it hasn't happened. But so, in essence, though, when we were talking, you said basically the convoy changed your mind from leaving Canada.
Yeah, I now know. People found their voices, right? Before the convoy, people were living in fear. If they were against this, they weren't saying so. Even vaccinated people who felt duped and tricked because, if they got double vaccinated and booster shot, and a booster shot, and they still got COVID and got it bad, right? Like they couldn't even say, I'm glad I got my 2 shots and my booster, because when I got COVID, I barely got it. They couldn't even say that because they got it really. I have family members, like a lot of family members that got vaccinated and got all the shots, all the boosters, and got it really bad. Like they were laid up, they were incapacitated, right? They can't say that it was worth it, right? And then, by the way, I came home to my house, and I'm not saying there's anything to this, but my family, and I've got quite a few kids, and my wife, they got this Omicron variant. They got it. So I came home. And I got it. This is, by the way, everybody, this is what COVID looks like for me. I have COVID. Hi. And I'm not vaccinated. I don't have booster shots. I don't have anything. But this is what COVID looks like for me. It's different for everybody, right? It's kind of like the flu. Maybe it's just a flu variant. I don't know. I'm not a scientist. I'm not an immunologist, but I
But the
am
bottom
fine.
line is you survived. It was mild. You're able to point at your Matrix shirt and talk about what's going on here in this world now,
Yeah.
right?
There is no
Um,
spoon.
Yeah. So,
There is no pandemic.
so what would your message be? Just to close off here, what would your message be to participants of the Freedom Convoy, to truckers, speaking not as an organizer, but as somebody who, as an individual who volunteered to help with some of the finances? What would your message be?
Yeah, exactly. Hey everybody, you volunteered or you protested or you found your voice. Good job. That's what we need to do more of. That's why this is permanent now. Governments will come and go, but people will always remember our protest, and people are going to realize that the ridiculous rumors that this is some crazy white supremacist movement that went to Ottawa to try and take over the government and kick the government out of the parliament buildings and take over. So that was completely ridiculous. The pictures, the footage, the memories, the stories that we have of support and love for each other, and it's getting out there. It's going to get out there even more. There was hundreds of thousands of people there. It's inevitable that the truth's going to be told over and over and over so many times that's going to be undeniable. So awesome, good job. The stories are positive, they're beautiful, they're uplifting, and I think that's going to win the day. That's what I have to say.
It really does remind me of Peter Gabriel's song Biko, who was the activist against apartheid in South Africa there. And that one line resonates fully for the Freedom Convoy. Once the flames begin to catch, the wind will blow it higher.
Yep.
Chad Euros, thank you so much for spending your time with us and sharing what's happening with the funds, your life, and the narrative. Thank you so much.
Thanks for having me, Gordon.
Once the flame begin to catch, the wind